The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Tuesdays here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by your friends at Hurrdat Sports. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Plenty of time to get in. And it's, as Dolman kind of coined it, we were talking with him over the weekend, Find Out Friday. And we'll get you there. Again, watch party at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Want to see you there on Friday. We're live on the road, Hail Varsity Roadie Friday at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, 4 to 6. Game kicks off at 7. Real Red Reaction follows. So I know we all look forward to the weekend sooner rather than later. A short week for the football team and plenty to hear from Tony White, Coach Satterfield, and a couple of the players. We'll get you keyed in here. Ben Scott talked. Harburg spoke. And what do they think about this upcoming challenge Friday, 489-1240, 489-1240. Elijah, you have a challenge tonight. Is the pot roast going to be just right? Not only time of eating, but for those vaunted leftovers.
No, the question is not the flavor and the leftovers. I have that portion now. This should be my protein for the rest of the week. The pot roast, it's a 7-pound roast, plenty of food in there. The question comes down to timing. And I had it all lined up perfectly. It's going to need the pot roast. It's a large one, so 8 hours in the crock pot or so.
Sure.
I had it planned out well.
Beef broth, French onion mix.
Yes.
You have salt and pepper, maybe some garlic rub.
Just wait.
Are you going?
There's Coca-Cola in there as well.
I've heard that's pretty good. I thought you were just
going to
say there's
pot roast.
I thought you were stopping with there's Coke in there. No.
That'll get you right for bowling, I tell you what.
Man, Elijah's really throwing hard at them pins. He's all keyed up.
Yeah.
So,
no, but it's potatoes, carrots, onion, plus the roast, some garlic. There's just some cloves of garlic sitting in there. Along with
the Coke.
There's beef stock, Coke, and then the French onion soup mix, as you said. So you got all that ready to go. I got it in around 11 a.m. this morning.
Okay.
8 hours of cook time. Should get it right by about 7:30 whenever I'm getting home and needing dinner in time for bowling tonight, which begins at 9.
And you're doing those new potatoes, like the pot roast potatoes.
The little small ones.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one problem being, I didn't account for the fact that it would take about an hour for everything to get hot in the crock pot. So now I'm an hour behind on cooking, and now some of the timing's getting dubious. So we're going to see the roommate should be getting home here within the next hour. They can check on it. They can. I cranked it up to high before I left, so hopefully that doesn't screw me over. They might have to turn it back down to low. We'll see. Regardless, nothing says fall. There's 2 meals to me that say fall. Chili and pot roast.
Right.
The 2 things that just that's what a perfect fall evening needs.
And Elijah's pot roast recipe so good it will get you arrested in 10 to 20 in federal. So I had to get the food question because I know it's bowling night.
Oh, and the fuel is the most important part of bowling.
It is.
You need a hearty protein.
You need a lot in your stomach to.
You need a hearty protein to soak up
the
the beer. Yes, perfect.
I know where you're going. Well, kind of our theme today is September Truths. And good column by Bill Connolly, ESPN.com. And some of the truths he's deciphered so far, he is not saying Texas is back. Texas will know if they're back twofold. They're not far removed from the Bama win, but they get Oklahoma on Saturday. But Michigan, and this sticks out. And what's your mindset as a Nebraska fan? And to me, this sounds a lot like Rule. It's not really who you play, but it's how you play. And I think that's been, obviously, with the record what it is at Nebraska at 2-3, going into a just critical ball game. But Nebraska's play has been really uneven. It's been, I'll say, good. As we're talking September truths, I will say the defense has been good. The defense was not good on Saturday. But for the most part, through the 5 ball games, 4 of them the defense has played well enough to win, and quite frankly has carried the other side of the football. The offense, a ways to go. We'll know more about quarterback. The truth is you're very limited through September with offense. 17 points is all you've put up in Big Ten play. 10 against Minnesota and 7 against Michigan. And then you factor in another 14 against Colorado. So your point total is disastrous. You've given up over 30 in 2 of the 3 Power 5 teams you played, 2 of your conference squads. And right now you're staring at 0-3 as you flip the calendar to October. But we know that the rebuild may be long, but can it be shortened enough to get to a bowl game this year? October is super important for that. You squeeze in a bye week, but can you get in and start off this month with going to be a hard-fought, tough ball game Friday night. It's going to be an ugly ball game. It's going to be probably a close ball game. I guess I don't see Illinois. You really know you're in trouble if Illinois' offense goes off on this defense. And the find out Friday part of it, I mean, the tone, the body language, the words on Monday and Tuesday, Elijah, seem okay. That this team is upset and this team is taking it serious. And whether you look at it as punishment or opportunity, you were wearing some pads on Sunday and you were cracking one another. He's got to get this team to just cut it loose, go have fun, and not be afraid, but also play control. That's a lot to ask, and you've got so many elements of this team where individually or as a group or unit, there's been some highlights, there's been some lowlights, and then there's been a lot of inconsistency. But what you don't have a guy on each level of the defense. You don't have a guy, maybe with the exception of Fedoni, that is a matchup problem. I'm not crowning him, but he's been the most consistent guy on offense to me so far at tight end. He's been what you look to, and in limited action as far as targets against Michigan, he at least made some nice plays. He looked the part. But overall, you just don't have a bunch of guys. You've got guys that some were recruited at a high level. Some are finds on the roster that have elevated through hard work and impressions on the practice field. But what you don't have is a dude or two on each side of the football as of right now that are dogs. And it's not that they can't get there, but you're now into game 5. You have a bunch of guys that have talent, and they've always kind of had their role. Some of them need to step forward and take charge and take over and be that difference maker. Be a Sunday guy, as Rule said. And I think you can see Friday night if that can happen, because you'll need really good quarterback play. You'll need somebody at running back to step forward. You'll need the offensive line, because I don't know how much money Nebraska is going to make running up the middle against the 2 interior tackles for Illinois. So I'd expect with Witherspoon in Seattle, Nebraska may try and attack the edge running the football. And then defensively, do you get after the quarterback, who Illinois' offense has been the quarterback run. Brown is off to the NFL. Their run game and their offensive line is a shadow of what it was. Can a Robinson take it out on Illinois? Can Nash respond? Can the middle linebackers, that second level, have a better tackling game? Secondary's been kind of in flux with some new faces due to injury. But you need about 4 guys to lose it in a good way on Friday night. And
whenever you look at this Illinois team, from a talent point of view, I don't think Illinois scares you all that much. That is being Nebraska. I don't think this is a team that is going to out-talent you on Friday night. They might be able to match your talent.
They've out-physicaled you in most years.
I'm getting there, because your talent hasn't necessarily been the best over the past couple years. I think there's some talented guys on roster. I don't think you have enough talent, as we saw on Saturday, to compete with the top of the Big Ten. You have enough talent to compete with Illinois, but there's 3 things that don't require any talent that I think Nebraska has really struggled with over the past couple weeks, really since that Colorado game. Maybe a little less against Northern Illinois, but definitely against Louisiana Tech and definitely against Michigan. That's your attitude, that is your effort, and that is your toughness. And those are the three things that Matt Rule preaches as being the hallmarks of his football program. Do you come with a positive attitude? Do you bring effort every single day? And do you play with a physical edge that shows that you are tougher than everybody else in the field? Those are the three things that if you don't have, you cannot play in a Matt Rule-led football program. And I don't think Nebraska has shown those over the past 2 weeks. I don't think some of those things have been as bad as they have been in recent years, but I think the attitude, the effort, and the toughness compared to what we saw the first 2 games of the season were really lacking against Louisiana Tech and Michigan. Can you get those things back? That's what something like a Sunday night practice can show the team, that you need to bring that back. That's what having a get-right game against Illinois can show, that, you know what, there's importance in having these three things and bringing these three things to the table. Those are the three things I'm really looking at from Nebraska against Illinois. If they can get those things done, I think they should be able to win the football game on Friday night, because it's not the same Illinois team of last year. This Illinois team has some issues. They don't have as much talent as they had last year. I think they're going to be getting there. They're kind of in that rebuild phase to get back up to a point similar to where they were last year. But if you can beat them in attitude, effort, and toughness, you should be able to win this football game.
They are like Nebraska with that crossroads moment early in the season. They battled back, but for the most part got dominated by a good Kansas team. They survived against a MAC squad. And then they got lit up and rolled up by their former defensive coordinator. And Purdue's supposed to have been a shadow of what they were a year ago in the post-Brom era. Another Elijah chimes in light of the complaints, I understand where we are as a program. The one thing that would give me a lot of hope with Rule and the future is clean football. No personal fouls, false starts, etc. And that's it. That has, listen, you need everything to go a certain way against a Michigan, like TCU had. TCU made some plays a year ago. TCU also got a lot of turnovers inside the red zone. That derailed Michigan, and Michigan left about 21 points on the field in a shootout game. What you're seeing from guys that have been in the program from a false start standpoint to make it 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 2 is unacceptable, and that can't move forward. But it's been ongoing, and listen, I don't get how that happens. I don't get how that happens at home, and you saw it screw Nebraska in the red zone against Minnesota. You saw it screw Nebraska in a drive against Colorado early in the game when it was still scoreless and you're trying to draw first blood. And then when you did get something going, that 4th and 1 drive, Nebraska somehow we were able to convert on a 3rd and 14, right? They found Fedoni for the first down, but that would have been another 3 and out. In the third quarter, you're driving, you get another false start, and then you're settling for a field goal in the red zone. Elijah, how the hell do these penalties keep happening? And it's not like there's freshmen or redshirt freshmen out there on the line. Well, talking some guys with 31 career starts.
Here's the thing. You just laid out 3 of the 4 total penalties for Nebraska against Michigan, though. They all came in poor moments aside from...
There's never a good time.
There's never a good time.
But 3rd and 2 is a bad time.
4 penalties for 30 yards, though, I think over the course of an entire game is not bad. It looks worse whenever you compare it to 0 penalties for 0 yards against Michigan. But if you take away the
compound interest, baby, on 3rd and 2.
If you take away the MJ Sherman personal foul in the third quarter when the game's already out of hand, you're 3 penalties for 15 yards. The only problem with those 3 penalties, all 3 of them came in like a back-breaking moment
down,
where you couldn't have them, 3rd down. So I don't think I necessarily look at the penalties. Sure, they can get better. It's not first and foremost paramount to me. To me, it comes down to, can you get yourself consistently to that 3rd and 3 so it's not every single time. I mean, if you only have 3 penalties, but all of them come on like your only 3rd down opportunities of the game, like it seems a lot
manageable.
Worse. Your 3rd manageable opportunities, I should say. Yeah, it feels like it's a lot worse. It comes down to, can this team get to 3rd and manageable more?
Well, that's going to be extremely important. We'll talk about that. Jeremiah Sirles going to be on the call this Friday, and we'll talk with Sirles, his thoughts on Michigan, his thoughts on Illinois coming up. He'll be with us to kick off hour 2. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic going to join us here in about 5 minutes or so, get his take and thoughts on, just where Nebraska's at, some of his impressions, and we'll kind of get his September truths. What are his takeaways through the first month of the season? And always can join us at 489-1240, 489-1240. I'm interested to see more of Fleeks. Maybe I am smitten by someone busting off a 74-yard run against Michigan be it their third team or the last guys on the travel roster, don't care. Saw some explosiveness and some shiftiness. He reminded me of Wandale running against Illinois from a size standpoint and just the ability to get lateral, then accelerate. I want to see more fleeks. I want to see some more option from Nebraska. And I know Michigan shut it down. Can Illinois do that? Again, I don't think they're going to make a living running up the middle. I don't say you don't try it or don't do it, but you pick your spots with their interior. And the quarterback question. We just laid out the point total, and that's not necessarily all on the quarterbacks. There's 10 other guys on the squad, but they want to be, from an offensive identity, a running team, be it quarterback or running back. They want to be a physical football team. That's their identity. That's their MO on offense. But if they are to spread things out a little more and let either Sims or Harburg, if he's still the guy, and I think Harburg will probably get a fourth straight start, let's see what he can do. Let's maybe open the offense up enough with some three wide. Can he get protection? That's the question. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. He'll be with us shortly. It's Hail Varsity with you on a Tuesday.
It's that time.
Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
I absolutely love that open from Road Trip and, of course, Dazed and Confused. We welcome in Mr. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. At Mitch Sherman. Mitch, I got to ask you, do you have any tool in your playlist when you're working out?
Probably not. But I can go and look for some of that.
No, that's all right. That's the bed below your show open. So I
got you.
I was just wondering.
I can hear the open.
No, I'm making sure. We can't ever tell with these phone lines. So making sure you got it. So.
Personally, the tool comes up heavy and often in my workout playlist, which has been less over the past couple of weeks, but I need to get back to the flow of things. 12 weeks till Christmas.
Yes, and Elijah's putting that down. Mitch, you had a chance to talk with some of the Huskers as they gear up towards the Illini, and it was a padded Sunday for Nebraska. What was your takeaway with some of the players that spoke from a body language, a tone from moving on from Michigan?
Yeah, that was a big topic of conversation among the players with the media today, and it goes back to Matt Rule's comments on Monday about how they put them in pads when they came in on Sunday. Sunday's normally a get-well day, some film study, recovery time, a light workout, and that was not the case this week after the Michigan game on Saturday. So they came in and were told to put on the full pads, and they went out and had a practice like it was a Tuesday. Now, some of that is because it's a condensed week, and they've got a game on Friday instead of Saturday, so they've got to mix some things together. But really, if you're trying to condense Sunday and Monday, you're not going to end up with the pads in that practice because Monday is typically an off day. So they're going to get their off days after the bye. Saturday will be an off day, most likely for this team, although we'll see, I guess, based on how things go on Friday night in Champaign.
Mitch, will Saturday be an off day for you?
It might be. It's a travel day, so no, that's not really an off day when I'm traveling. I'm still working, but I'm going to watch some college football. Looking forward to seeing some of the Red River game as I delayed my flight a bit out of Chicago on Saturday so I can sit and watch some of Oklahoma, Texas before I have to head to the airport, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there when I get home.
Mitch Sherman is with us from The Athletic. At Mitch Sherman is where you can follow him on Twitter. So, Mitch, we were diving in a little bit to September truths as you flip the calendar to October. What do you think you know about this Nebraska football team heading into Illinois? What can you gauge about Rule and this team through this first run? They're 2-3.
I'll stick to most of the observations that I made through the first four games. I think Michigan will prove to be an outlier on this season. I don't think it's going to be the game that sinks Nebraska's ship, and then all of a sudden we're talking about the first 4 games and the last 8 and how Nebraska's season went a different direction. Michigan is the team on Nebraska's schedule that doesn't fit with the other 11. Every other game is one that Nebraska can be competitive in, and that's how we saw it. That's how I saw it before the season began, and I'm still very much looking at it that way. So the observations that I would make about this team are going to be based mostly on what we saw in the first 4 games when they've gone against competition that belongs on the field with Nebraska, as opposed to last Saturday when you could be looking at maybe the best team in the country. And if not, that definitely a favorite to make the 4-team college football playoff. And I would say that I know about this team that they're going to play tough physical defense, that they're going to try to run the football, that they're going to be conservative on the offensive side and hope that their defense can do enough to keep them in games, and that they're going to strive to be a team that's better in the fourth quarter. That they're going to try to win the special teams, and that hasn't necessarily happened every week out this year. But they've got another 7 games to work on that and be the kind of product in November that they set out in July and August to turn this team into.
We have a comment in here on the stream from Dion. He says, "I'm pretty sure if we can't beat Illinois, we are not going bowling." And I think that's about my feeling as well with this Husker football team. And really, whenever you look at the next 4 games, Illinois, Northwestern, Purdue, and Michigan State, I think Nebraska needs to go 3-1 in those 4 if they want a chance at making a bowl game in November. And I'm going to get your thoughts based on what you saw in the first 4 games. If we're setting Michigan to the side, as you said, do you think it's possible for Nebraska to go 3-1 over the next 4? And I guess what do they have to show you over those next 4 for Nebraska to get to that 3-1 mark?
Yeah, it's going to take improvement. And I think that was the direction that Nebraska was headed before we got to September 30th. So it's going to take continued improvement over the team that we saw in the first 4 games. They played better in games 3 and 4 than they did in games 1 and 2. And I understand the circumstances were different. They were at home. They were playing group of 5 teams. And it's all, of course, Power 5, Big Ten from here on out. But it's not a murderer's row of opponents. In fact, I think the best 2 teams on Nebraska's schedule are there at the end in Wisconsin and Iowa. So you'd like to see that if you're Matt Rule and this coaching staff. They've got the next set of games, whether it's you can group that this is a 1-game season that Nebraska's playing here before it's bye. And they'll have time to assess and heal up. And then they've got 3 games. I suppose you can look at it that way. And then you got the finishing stretch of 3. So, I think it's out there for them, but I would agree with you, Elijah, that it's going to be really difficult for Nebraska over the last 6 to make a bowl game if it has to go 4-2. This is a game, mathematically, yes, it can happen, but realistically, Nebraska probably has to win this game to be in a decent position at all to go 6-6 and go bowling at the end of this thing.
Mitch with us from The Athletic, Mitch Sherman. Find him at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. So with the quarterback spot, Harburg was in front of the media today. Satterfield says sooner than later for Sims. What's your read, Mitch? Do you think the offense could spark with Sims, or do you think you keep watching Harburg get better? And I know Saturday was a tough day, but you saw some decent things from Harburg throwing the football that you hadn't seen.
Yeah, Michigan took most things away. They set out to take away the run, and they allowed Nebraska some things in front of the Michigan defense through the passing game, but nothing that actually beat Michigan, nothing that led to points. The points that Nebraska got in that game were on a 74-yard run. And, much like Nebraska will tell you that all of the Michigan touchdowns came on broken plays. I'm sure that wasn't a play that the backup defenders for Michigan played all that well. Sometimes we tend to look at this thing and it's like, well, okay, Nebraska made a mistake every time Michigan scored. So if the Huskers could have done this a little bit better and a little bit better, then the score might have been whatever you want to come up with in your mind. I can guarantee you that Michigan wants that play back where Josh Fleeks broke free for 74 yards, and there were a lot of things that went wrong for Michigan on that play too, as you might expect with second and third teamers in the game on the defensive side. So I think you can look at Heinrich Harburg and you can take some good things out of that game. He got hot through the air in the first half in completing passes. And, his accuracy was good after that first throw of the game that was batted into the air. He wants to avoid that, and as a 6'5" guy, he should be able to avoid that just about every time he throws the ball. What I expect going forward, I think you're going to see both guys. I really do. I think once Jeff Sims is back in a position where he's 100%, he's going to get some reps. Heinrich has been a good quarterback for Nebraska through these last 3 games, but he hasn't played at the level where you say, all right, this thing is over and done with. There's still a competition there. There's still something that Nebraska can get out of Jeff Sims. He's a good athlete in his own right. Does some things, I think, better than Heinrich Harburg, and they're going to get the ball back in his hands. As Satterfield said, and I would agree, it's his decision, but I don't think he's fibbing, sooner rather than later. It might be Friday night.
Mitch, in the long term, what do you think the importance of Matt Rule getting the quarterback right is going to be for his rebuild? Not just in 2023, but into 2024 and 2025. Is it the most important part of his rebuild he gets quarterback right? Is there other things that are more important? Where does that rank to you in terms of if Matt Rule can't get a quarterback, how is his rebuild going to go?
It's the most important single position. I mean, you can group things together and rate them as just equally important or more important. I would say the culture of the program, the physical condition of the players, everything that he wants to do to remake the offensive line. I mean, all of those things are important. But if you're talking about one position, there absolutely is nothing more important than for him to get the quarterback right. And even with the other, in comparison to the other items that can involve 20, 30, 40 players or the whole roster, getting the quarterback right, it's still comparatively very important. We don't know. It doesn't look like they got it right this year. If you go back to the end of November and you see what he had in front of him with the returning players in the program, and you include Casey Thompson, injured at the time, in that list of players, they're not sitting right now, I think, in the ideal spot compared to where they were 10 months ago. So did he get it wrong this year? Let's see after 12 games. But it's not trending in a great direction. It's going to be really important for him moving forward into the 24 season and beyond that to hit a home run when it comes to quarterback evaluation and development.
Mitch, about 90 seconds. What concerns you about Illinois?
Their defensive front. I think they've underachieved. Illinois hasn't been great at the line of scrimmage. We've seen historically, at least in recent history, that teams have a tendency to get right against Nebraska. Michigan got right against Nebraska. Michigan fans were grumbling about plenty that had happened with the Wolverines in the first 4 games of the season, and it looked like none of those gripes held up in game number 5. So who knows? That could continue to be a theme for Nebraska opponents, and really that has more to do with Nebraska, I think, or as much to do with Nebraska as it does with those teams on the other side of the field. If Illinois is right and they've got those defensive linemen stuffing the run and getting after the quarterbacks, then they're going to be a formidable opponent. So I would say that's the number one thing. And then on the other side, they've really had a hard time protecting their quarterback, and they've had a hard time stopping a team's run games, which goes back to that defensive line. But still, there's good players up front for Illinois on defense, and if they're playing their best, then Nebraska's going to have a hard time with the things that it likes to do in the short yardage game.
Mitch Sherman, find him on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. Read him with The Athletic. Check out his podcast with The Average Sports Show, him and Bill Dolman. And Mitch, will check in with you later on. Awesome stuff. Have a good trip to Champaign.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
There he is. Good to spend time with Mitch Sherman. We'll get to your stream comments, your emails, plenty of reaction. We'll hear from the coordinators. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Mitch Sherman. Hail Varsity continues on. Jeremiah Sirles in about 25 minutes. Reminder about your friends at Dyer Law, workers' compensation. Are you confused about the options for your workers' compensation claim. Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law to help ensure that your rights are protected. You get the settlement you deserve. Call Dyer Law and the team today at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your workers' compensation claim. That's Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Open phones till 5. Want to chime in at 489-1240? You can do it. There's good stuff from Mitch. We have some comments. Rick emails in and calling his shot. He thinks that we're going to get beat by the pig farmer. Pretty good coach. And Mitch was right on. If they get right, that theme of someone else always kind of clearing the cobwebs and finding their way against Nebraska. It sucks to be a lot of people's get-right team or game. That's got to shift. I like the gauntlet thrown down by Rule. I like the fact that they're wearing pads now. They got to go out and do it. Cutter chimes in. Love his comments. This team will never get there, get where it wants to get until it can rebuild the offensive line. Sorry to say that this offensive line is still one of the worst in the Big Ten. Can't be a good O with no O-line. And they've got to figure that out. And Redwine, I think this might be Husker legend Jarvis. Rule needs to decide.
He said later on it wasn't.
Okay.
Well, we'll get there in a second, but he said he needed a handle for a chat room back in 1995.
So he just went with Jarvis 65. Fine with me. I like Redwine, man. You've got Rule needs to decide on an offensive identity and strive to fill that players. Hold on a sec. Identity and strive to
fill the players in to just do it.
Yeah, fill the players in to just do it. Thank you for reading. I need to go back to my phonics.
My screen is much larger than yours.
Yes, it is.
It might be that time where Schmidt needs reading glasses.
I
go pull out the old readers.
Let me get the readers out and go to work that way, but it may not matter. But, yeah, I mean, they got to figure things out. We'll hear from Rule. We'll hear from Harburg. We'll hear from Scott next hour, but we're talking about September truths, and that is a truth with this football program and team is the offensive line. There's some other comments about the pot roast, and our friend Brennan from the Black Hills. You have to give the Mississippi pot roast a try.
Oh, I've seen that one.
So what's the difference between Elijah's pot roast with Coke, not that kind, and the Mississippi pot roast?
So the Mississippi pot roast, I've seen this. Use the Hidden Valley Ranch packets.
Okay, yeah, and just sprinkle it on top.
Sprinkle on top, and then you get the full jar of pepperoncinis with the juice.
Oh, yeah.
And then you pour the pepperoncinis on top, and it becomes like this pepperoni ranch type sauce. That the
magic sauce.
Your gravy. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Coca-Cola pot roast. Mm-hmm. It's been a tried and true method of mine for a long time. One of the ones that I've made it for so long that you don't even have to consult the recipe book at all.
That's fine.
Just throw it together real quick, and I probably have to consult the recipe book for the old Mississippi pot roast.
The pepperoncinis are fabulous. I love them.
But back to the offensive line really fast here while we're talking September truths, and it's something that we've talked about for a long time on this show. The fact that offensive line is like a brisket, and you can't microwave brisket and have it taste good. If you're cooking it from raw, you're not going to have a very good brisket if you throw it in the microwave. Yeah. Well, where Nebraska is at, I think, not only in terms of this rebuild with the offense, but specifically when I zoom in on the offensive line, you're about 4 hours into a brisket cook. Yeah, you might have reached an internal temperature that's safe for eating. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean that brisket's going to become the tender and the rendered fat that you want. It's just reached, a nice little internal temperature of 150, and it's still going to be chewy as hell. Just because it's edible does not mean it's as good as the brisket can be. And I think we're at about that point where you're 4 hours in. Hey, you've killed off the pathogens.
Give it some more time.
But it's not done. It needs some more time. This offensive line, I think, has made strides from last year. It's still, based on what I have seen, not an offensive line that's going to be top half of the Big Ten just yet. But it's not going to be dead last either. You're on that upward trajectory. And, hey, maybe once a guy like Prohaska can get his feet under him, you can start moving that trajectory up just a little bit. It's not there just yet. It is an improvement, though, from 2022 and 2021 in terms of what this offensive line is, at least in my opinion.
We talk about putting that pot roast in or the brisket for your football watch parties, and you'll have a chance to come see us at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill Friday 4 to 6 before the watch party in La Vista, and they take care of the food for you. Get the bang bang sauce. We can't recommend that enough. But if you're throwing a watch party for football, a lot of dudes will throw ribs or brisket on their smoker, and if you screw it up, the next time you try and redeem yourself, Elijah, they will say, "No, I'm okay." they will just pass on the future invite. Let's hear a little bit from Coach Tony White. Get a little bit defensive flavor. We spent some time on the offense, and Coach White sounded off immediately on what Saturday wasn't. Cut one here from Mr. White.
We have to do our job, right? We're 1/3 of the team, so if we don't stop them on defense, then we got no chance. I mean, we got zero chance, and so that just was not good enough. That was ridiculous. So as we go through this process, and they see and they understand, and coach having those expectations on us on that side of the ball, then we need to live up to it.
Hey, and that has been reinforced more than a few times verbally by Rule, publicly, that you're a defensive football team. You got to own that. More thoughts from Coach White. What stood out on film?
The execution, and then the going out there on the grass and playing with our hair on fire. Those were the two things that showed up the most. You say on that 29-yarder, we didn't even have a guy. We didn't have a guy do the right thing. He went the completely wrong way, and no coincidence it goes right there. So, and that's just one of the plays that we're giving up. But probably more so, about the execution is the manner of which we didn't play with our hair on fire, and that's all. That's me. I know Coach sat up here in front of everybody and said that and did that, but that's also my responsibility too, to make sure that when those young men line up on the grass, they play lights out and they play RDV, and they didn't. So we need to make sure that we allow those guys to do that.
Back to the who you play versus how you play. And the defense has looked off the last 2 weeks. And Michigan will make a lot of defenses look off. Louisiana Tech, not so much. And they got to recapture that form that you saw all game against Minnesota. For the last 2 minutes, not good. You didn't get a stop. I get it, but they played fast and furious to the football. They did it against Colorado for a half.
It was the way that the defense played like the next play was going to be their last.
Yeah.
That's how it felt through those first two games. You haven't felt that since the Northern Illinois game, and I think that may have just been about how bad Northern Illinois' offense was. You haven't had the intensity there the past couple weeks.
No, and they need to rekindle that. We'll wind down hour one, 15 minutes away from Sirles. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Hurrdat Sports. You can watch the show, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Check that out. Subscribe. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Give that a follow as well. And Spotify, iTunes, Google Play is the podcast you can download and take the show with. The segment you want to hear, or for sure the entire show. 489-1240. 489-1240. Are you going to tweet out a picture of your pot roast later? Can you do that for the people?
Is that what the people want?
I don't know.
Question.
There's a different way to phrase that with a question mark. Do you want to see Elijah's ... And there's a scream from border to border in the state.
See,
no is the answer.
The thing is whenever I think of foods that I really want to show off.
Do you
on
hate
social
that or
media,
no? Do you hate that or not?
No, I like it.
Because I'm kind of that guy where I'll tweet out a picture of steak or ribs or whatever.
Yeah, no, and those are the foods that it's necessary with.
But
Like what kind
is it,
of
is it annoying though? Is it an automatic? I'm not following this guy.
Well,
again.
here's the thing: with a good brisket or ribs or a steak or a lot of these things, you can tell how good it's going to be just based on the eye test, based on the picture. Pot roast is not one of those foods.
So what meat is Nebraska right now?
What meat is Nebraska?
Are they that brisket that's at 4 hours and needs to go 8.5? To keep with the food
the
analogy?
offensive line is, I think, in terms of the greater Husker football team, it might be like a ground chicken that is just like, it's protein for you.
It's chicken.
It's chicken, but you're going to have to do a lot to it to make it like a high-quality meal.
You are going
so
to absolutely need to fry that bad boy somehow, some way. Get me the salt, the seasoning, the pepper, the smelling salt. Rock Westfall, Rock, good to hear from you. Rules an obvious upgrade as coach, and it shows. They were just in a trance Saturday. Still, they are better off. Just get to Detroit by any means necessary, and it's a great season. So, again, that 6-win success number and bowling, even if it's the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit. I do like the Detroit airport.
We go to the phone lines now where Pete's been hanging on.
Pete, hang on, and thanks for hanging on. Go for it.
I got a couple points I'd like to make. I guess when I watch our defense, I see some technique problems, especially on the defensive line. If you look at Michigan and watch their defensive line, they kept their shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. And we have a tendency to get kind of turned, and once you get turned, you can get gapped. So I think if you look on offense, you can find some technique problems too. So I think maybe over time that'll get corrected. The other point is, does either one of the quarterbacks, can they throw on the run? Because I could be wrong, but I really don't see any quarterback rollouts, run pass options.
You didn't see a ton of it with Harburg. They're not going 3, 5, 7-step drop, but it's more quick read and release, right, out of the shotgun, catch and fire. That's what I've seen. They've tried rolling Sibbs. He had a couple against Colorado on the sideline that hit, and then he had the oh-no on third down. They got picked and kind of opened the floodgates. So they've called it sparingly, and they've done the waggle thing where you bootleg to the outside of the right tackle and try and move him that way. So, Pete, thanks for the phone call. We'll see if there's more movement. That's one way to help protect against a line that doesn't protect as well. Sirles will answer some things next.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We welcome in Jeremiah Sirles, standout Husker NFLer at Sirles71_HSKR. You'll hear Sirles Friday night in Champaign as part of the Husker broadcast. Sirles, you're in your Husker den. Good to see you again, brother. Tell me about the animals you were hunting. Did you get anything for the wall?
Unfortunately, we did not. We went elk hunting in Colorado with my dad for 8 days. We were into the elk every day, but when you have the old stick and string in your hand and not the high-powered rifle, you got to get them a lot closer than they wanted to come. But great time, loved it. Unfortunately got timing back to watch that Nebraska football game, so would have rather stayed in the mountains and had my phone turned off than have to take my son to that game for his first Husker game in 100-degree heat.
Yeah.
He didn't love that. He didn't love that. He did love running around on the field afterwards, though. That was the highlight of his day. So
that was probably the highlight of many people's day with that. So do you go full like Schwarzenegger and Predator with the camo?
Oh yeah, I've got face paint on. I've got the camo. Oh yeah, I'll send you a picture. I am one with the trees.
I love it. I love
one
that.
with the trees.
How's the accuracy? Are you Herbert, or are you former backup Nebraska quarterback? We won't name names, but just from an accuracy standpoint, where are you?
Oh, I'm in there with my bow. I can put it in a dime within 40 yards. So if they would have came along, I had one big bull at 80, I had one big bull at 60, and just couldn't get him to come any closer. So.
Well, next time, right?
Next time. Always next time.
Sirles, let's talk about next time, and I want to kind of relate this to a gauntlet that was thrown down to you. It's kind of jarred my memory, your 2012 season. Guys went to the Big Ten championship game. It's after Ohio State. That was a shootout, and Ohio State, Urban, year one, ended up scoring 60. You guys put up enough points to win, right around 38, I think. But right afterwards, and whatever closet Bo was stuck in for the post game, it was, we need to win out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't quite who we are Friday, but that's how I'm kind of linking things up from what Rule said, because it's a big response game Friday. How did you take that in that moment with Bo kind of laying the gauntlet down, and what do you think of what Rule said Monday?
Yeah, when we heard that moment, we all knew that's what we had to do. And there was no sugarcoating it. It was like, if we want to succeed and have the goals in front of us that we want to do, which is Big Ten championship and rolling, then there is no other option. There is no escape button. Right? It was burn the boats time, right? Like, there is no going back. You go forward or you die. And I don't think we're quite at that point where with the Husker team that is right now, but this is a big pivotal turning point of the season as we stare down the barrel of the gun of the Big Ten schedule coming at us, right? I think at the beginning of the year, we all looked at this game with Illinois, and we probably all were looking like, probably an L. Illinois is supposed to be pretty good this year. Things going back, and then you turn on the tape, and they are as much as a dumpster fire as anyone in the country right now. Like, they can't complete passes. They can't run the football. They can't stop anyone. And I look at this game as a pretty evenly matched two teams coming into a Friday night game after both putting up really embarrassing losses on Saturday, one to Purdue and one to Michigan. And everyone's trying to look at this as a get-back-on-track game. So, with Rule challenging the team, putting them in full pads on a Sunday, and, hey, God bless, boys, because I'm sure that was real fun. Like, those are just attitude setters where it's like, hey, you don't want to work during the week, you don't want to figure it all out, then hey, we'll just you don't want to work on Saturdays, we'll just work when we practice, right? That's an attitude, that's a culture type setting thing that Rule's just going to instill in these guys.
It's Jeremiah Sirles with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska, Michigan, and looking ahead to Illinois. And Sirles, which position group do you think is going to have the biggest chip on their shoulder this week because of what we saw against Michigan? A lot of positions had a bad day. I think you could really look and say that Nebraska probably got beat at all 22 positions on offense and defense. Now I'll get your take on just who needs to have the biggest get-right game against Illinois on Friday based on what we saw on Saturday.
It's probably our D-line. Our D-line has been a bright spot for us with Nash Hutchmaker and Ty Robinson, Elijah Judy, Cam Lenhart when he's healthy. And, you talk about those guys playing well the early part of the season. No one have showed up on Saturday. And I'm not saying that as a detriment to them. I mean, hats off to Michigan. That's 5 offensive linemen that you will see playing on Sundays. Right? Those are 5 NFL offensive linemen that were starting for Michigan, and that's a hard thing to do. But at the same time, I didn't see the passion, the fire, and the energy that I'm used to seeing from our defense. And that starts with the ability to get up front and get after the passer and stop the run and create negative plays. So the biggest bounce back game, in my opinion, is going to be for that defensive front of the Black Shirts.
Why do you think that the passion was lacking? I mean, the juice in the stadium, and I'm not calling the fans out. They know football, right? They know football.
The juice sucked. The juice sucked.
The juice was not good, and then clearly you got to bring your own juice. You shouldn't have to for Michigan, but they looked timid. We've hit on this a lot, but I want your perspective as a guy who played it at a high level, pro in college. Did you ever go out there timid because of who you were facing?
No, and I think that goes back to there isn't a game that I can remember playing when I played in Nebraska that we didn't think we could win. Right? There was never any time that we stepped out on that football field and thought, well, let's just try and not lose today. Right? Like, we thought we were going to win every football game. But that's because we won a lot of football games, and we knew what that feeling of winning is like. And I've talked about this before for what feels like 3 or 4 years now, is just the fact that no one on this football team knows that feeling very well. Right? No one knows that feeling of walking out against especially a Big Ten opponent and being like, yeah, we're going to beat you. Like, because we know we can, because we've done it. Right? Like, I can't think of the last time this team, Iowa last year, but has walked out consistently week in and week out and strung multiple conference wins together. And so, when you come out with, man, that's the number 2 team in the country, that's got a lot of talent, man, the stadium's not really buzzing, no one around the state really talking about how, like, maybe we can upset. Like, there just was nothing there to light that fire. and you can only get up so many times, right? As a player, you want to go out, but at one point in time, you have to just say, hey, this is for my pride. This is for, I want to show that I can go up against toe-to-toe with the best in the business, which is Michigan right now, honestly, a national champion contender, and I'm going to go punch first, right? I'm going to punch these dudes first. And I just didn't see any swinging from offense, defense, or special teams. And that, for me, was the most disappointing part. I didn't go into this game thinking that we were going to go toe-to-toe in a shootout with Michigan, right? But I wanted to see this Husker team emotionally come out and swing and punch and fight. And I just didn't see a whole lot of that in this game.
So, at what point, given Matt Rule's history, if you continue to see these guys not fight, because I don't think you saw a whole bunch of fight from the defense, especially in the first half against Louisiana Tech. They followed up with another flat performance against Michigan. At what point do you think Matt Rule starts looking a little bit deeper on the bench, some of those younger guys that he has brought in here to be the next faces of the program? At what point do you think Matt Rule starts turning to those guys?
I don't think you see that this year. I don't think you all of a sudden want to burn shirts and burn some young guy's ability just based off the fact that, hey, we just need guys, right? Like, you want to develop those guys. You want to keep those guys in the developmental program, lifting 3 days a week, practicing super hard, doing all those things. So, I don't anticipate you just saying, hey, let's just throw these guys out there and see what happens. You kind of, hey, we're in a rebuild. He's very open about it. We're rebuilding. It takes time. Let's play with the guys we got on defense. And then you just try and push those guys and say, hey, you got to play better. And guess what? Like, it's not the threat of being benched. It's the threat of, do you want to keep getting embarrassed? Do you want to keep going out there and put the name on the back of your jersey and put the tape out there of what this tape is? Because you are your tape. Your tape is your resume, right? Good, bad, ugly, and different. People cut on the tape. They don't care if you're hurt. They don't care if you're dinged. You are who you are on tape. So at one point, you just have to suck up and say, that's not who I am. I'm going to play better. And if you get 11 guys doing that, then the outcome overall will be better.
Jeremiah Sirles with us here on Hail Varsity Radio at Sirles71_HSKR. Find him on Twitter and Instagram. So, Sirles, let's look into the offense here. And how much do you chalk up the inability to score points, 17 total points in Big Ten competition, to the quarterback? Is it the O-line? Would Sims make a difference? May he make a difference sooner than later, is what Satterfield said today. I don't think Harburg's been bad. I've seen him kind of grow. As bad as Saturday was offensively, he did some okay things. So is quarterback an issue for you at this point, or what's the magic answer to get the offense better from a point total standpoint so the defense isn't out there having to pitch a shutout or hold somebody to 10?
Yeah, obviously quarterback is the engine of the offense. You go nowhere without the trigger man being a very good player and taking care of the football. And I do think this is still Jeff Sims' team. I don't think this is fair to say, oh, he's lost it because Harburg went out and beat 2 low-level schools, right? Like, that's not fair to say, oh, Jeff Sims had 2 Power 5 things that didn't go well, and then Harburg came in and beat up on these poor little kids, and now it's his team. Like, I still think it's Sims' team. But, to fix the offensive problems is our efficiency on first and second down. Running the football, efficient plays. I always say efficient plays are 4-yard-plus plays in the run game. And, getting ourselves into 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 manageable is what makes that happen. Too many times have we seen our offense have a negative play or a no-gain play on first down, and now we're sitting staring 2nd and 10 in the face, and you have to make a decision. Do I try and run it again to try and get it to 3rd and 7, or do I throw the ball and risk an incompletion and sit here in 3rd and 10? 2nd and 10 is the worst possible down and distance to be in as an offensive coordinator because you're put in a box to have to decide one or the other. So to fix this offense, to get it sputtering and get it going and stop it sputtering and get it some momentum to it, much more efficient on first down.
Jeremiah Sirles with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Sirles, whenever you look back at that Michigan game and look ahead with Nebraska, I think one of the things that's most impressive about that Michigan performance is that offensive line. I think, off the top of my head, it was 1 negative play from the Wolverines all day and no penalties. So that offense was always moving forward. And as you talk about Nebraska's first and second down efficiency, getting yourself to 3rd and manageable, I think a lot of that falls upon the offensive line. And now that you've seen Nebraska's offensive line against the class of the Big Ten in terms of front 7 in Michigan, how far away do you think this offensive line is from being a reasonable offensive line in the Big Ten? I guess a Nebraska offensive line.
That's hard for me to answer because of it wasn't a real game. And what I mean by that is I didn't get to see this offensive line execute in critical situations of a 4-minute drill, a 2-minute drill, a 3rd and 1 and manageable against a team that knows you're going to run the football versus a team that just had their ears pinned back and we're like, well, you're down by 40, so we know you're going to throw the football, right? It's hard for me to gauge that. Looking at the tape overall, I think they've taken steps in the right direction, but it always just keeps seeming like it's just one guy, right? And it's not just one guy specifically. It's everyone taking their turn being the one guy. And when you're an offensive line, if 5 do not equal 1, then the play's kaput before it even begins. So I want to see this O-line be more consistent. I think this is a week that we'll be able to see, hey, can you execute from quarter 1 to quarter 4 and put a full game together? And then I'll be better like educated to answer that question for you, Elijah.
What are you seeing from Teddy? Because I know he had some more time in the second half.
He got ran over once, which
happens.
Welcome back, buddy. But I still am not fully convinced he trusts that knee. He's got double shoulder braces on, double knee braces on. Like, the guy hasn't played a lot of football in the last couple of years. I think it's going to take some time if he does become the guy to knock some rust off. But, he's got the build, he's got the body, and we just want to see him continue to develop and become better and better because we're going to need him down the stretch.
What about Turner? He keeps trying to go out there, and I know there's been some numbers associated with his performance, but he's still showing up.
Yeah, and he fights, and he battles, and he plays hard. And, sometimes you get outclassed out there. It happens. But one thing I know about Turner is he's not going to quit. And I can handle a guy that's going to go out there and fight tooth and nail. Now, would I like to see him clean up some of the technical things? Absolutely. Would I like to see him stop leaning when he punches, not stopping his feet on contact and running through some things? For sure. Everyone would love to see him get better. But, with what he was, and I think everyone assuming he was going to move into guard, and then Teddy not getting dinged and saying, hey, we need you to still go play the hardest position on the offensive line, he's been serviceable.
It's Jeremiah Sirles with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Sirles, I think we have time for one, maybe two final thoughts here. And whenever you look at what Anthony Grant has put on film, the fumbling really wasn't an issue last year. Apparently it is this year. He's looked all right the past 2 games. Michigan was a tough ask with just how little room there was to run. Mm-hmm. What do you make of him being the bell cow over the next 7 games?
I'm okay with it. I think it's not like he's not used to it. He was the bell cow last year. Do I think he would be more effective if we had more of a 1-2 punch? Yes, but such is football, next man up. So I think he needs to focus on taking care of the football. Fumbling is a confidence issue. When you think about fumbling, you fumble. When you're confident in ball security and it's not even a thought, then you can focus on running. And right now I think he's focusing on don't fumble the football. And so you're seeing a little bit more of a slower read, a slower press, because when he's at his best, he's putting one foot in the ground and getting north and south. And I also think he fell into the trap a little bit last week of, I got to get a spark, I got to make this offense go and try and bounce and make the big play instead of just trust the process, trust the play, pound it up inside for 4 yards. I think he tried to press a little too much.
Sirles, last thought with just this team's psyche and what they're going into for Friday night. What are you looking for when you're getting ready for the game as things are about to kick off Friday in Champaign?
Yeah, I want to see how this team's going to respond from getting punched in the face. CU was a punch in the face, but this was a true dragging, right? You got dragged out of your own stadium. How do you respond, right? How does Rule have this team respond, and do they come out swinging or do they come out their tails between their legs? And a lot of that's going to be dependent on how Rule has got them coached, how Rule has got them prepared during the week, and how some of the senior leadership steps up and pulls some of these younger guys with them. I want to see them come out and play really hard.
Knowing the seniors on this team, do you anticipate the right response?
I do anticipate the right response. I think these guys are going to come out the right way, ready to play. And like I said, I think this is a coin flip game because I think Illinois is in the exact same boat.
Well, it's going to be bring your own energy.
Oh, yeah. Friday night in Champagne's not going to be popping. Nope. No popping bottles and champagne on Friday night. That's for sure.
You're going to have to go to the club.
A poetic close from Sirles.
I like that. Sirles, we'll see you on Friday, bud. Take care, and thanks for the time.
Absolutely appreciate you guys. Go Big Red.
Good to spend time with Jeremiah Sirles. Good perspective there. We'll dive into Friday and beyond. How confident are you in 3-1? Open phone still 6-489-1240.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Sirles, Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Hurrdat Sports. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. 489-1240, 800-825-5865. We'll get into some NFL, some observations here from the past weekend, the look ahead, some more thoughts on Nebraska, Illinois, as it is Find Out Friday. We'll be at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Come see us. Watch party follows our live road show 4 to 6. That's in La Vista. If you haven't been up there to the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, check it out. Should be a good old time. Plenty of beer and whiskey and other choices flowing. Elijah may do more than just one basket of corn fritters. I may do more than just one basket of shrimp with the Bang Bang sauce. I may kill an entire pizza or two. I have not quite decided, and some of you may need to eat your feelings, as in feelings of joy if Nebraska makes it happen, or feelings of, oh no, it's a 2-4 team going into the bye. Dear God, been here before. 489-1240. Get into some more of the stream comments, some more thoughts from White, Coach White, and also Satterfield on the offense. Anonymous chimes in. The ESPN FPI gives Nebraska a 20% chance of finishing the year with at least 6 wins. This against the least daunting schedule Nebraska will see for at least the next 10 years. Anonymous, you're absolutely right. Do you look at the schedule, Elijah, and say, don't care if it's year one, Nebraska's schedule is as, air quote, manageable, winnable, coin flippable, doable as it's ever going to be? Because there's been years where it's just been a gauntlet. November's still no fun for Nebraska. I mean, Maryland right now looks all right. We'll see what they're all about after their trip to Ohio State this weekend, but they're almost ranked, and they've got one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Iowa's a mess without their quarterback. They're chanting, fire Brian, but they're still finding ways to win. And Iowa's probably on their way to 8 or 9 at least. Then there's Wisconsin. And you start the whole month off with Michigan State. Task at hand right now, Friday at Illinois. Finding a way out of that. It's not been a good place for you. What's it been? Has Illinois beat you 3 straight times? The last time you beat Illinois was 2019. They crushed you in Lincoln after Penn State in 20. You lost the opener in 21. We were up there for that. The infamous safety to start things off with the kickoff. And then in 22, you were leading them. And then Casey got smoked and it went downhill.
So let's see. I got all the stats pulled up in front of me here. Since joining the Big Ten, Nebraska is 6-4 versus Illinois. But the last one was in 2019. You have lost 3 straight to Illinois.
You had to shoot out to win that.
Overall, you are 2-2 in Champaign. The last of those coming in 2019. You're also 1-1 in one-score games against the Fighting Illini. So it's really been pretty dead even since you've joined the Big Ten in terms of you and Illinois, which I don't think Husker fans will want to hear that it's you and Illinois. You're dead even over the past 10 years. But since 2017, Nebraska 3-3 against Illinois. Nebraska is 2-1 in Champaign in those games since 2017.
Man. Well,
so even pretty much in terms of Illinois. Illinois has kind of been your litmus test in the Big Ten over the past couple of years. Are you good enough to beat Illinois? Because that's been the team that's been on your level.
Well, and they were the best team in the West a year ago. They didn't have a good finish to the year. Put a lot of guys in the league that Lovey left Coach Burt, and they are a far cry from that this year. Scott chimes in, the false starts are horrible. I'm not going to name names, but it's the same 2 players every freaking week. Yeah, can you clean up the penalties, and what type of response? I loved hearing that from Sirles. What is the response going to be like? You'd like to think you know, Elijah, because all the right things are said on a Tuesday by the players, but it's easier said than done with this Nebraska football team. And let's go back to Coach White when we talk response. His thoughts on Sunday, because that's been a big question, was, okay, you had to wear pads. How'd the team go about it when it was time to get after it? And Sirles said something interesting with, all right, you're not going to play physical and tough and go out there and let it rip Saturday. Fine, is what Sirles said. We'll do it Sunday. And that's what Nebraska ended up having to do.
They responded well. I've never seen that before, where Coach just sprung that on them on a Sunday, and they went out there and had probably one of their better practices ever in pads. So they have responded up to this point. But it's still a process, right? And the tell will be when the clock reads 0 Friday night. So.
Okay, this has been a talking point, and it's a point of emphasis because it's helped to aid this defense, and that is pass rush. And do you have Cam Linhart back? He's been one of your better pass rushers. Sounds like you will on Friday night. You've had some of the guys. Your blitzer has been Reimer. You're not going to have him. Henrich has been good. Nash has had a good sack total early, but he's looking to rebound against a tough Michigan outing. And Coach Tony White was asked about the pass rush.
Or the lack thereof.
Yes. That comes back on me, right? The being aggressive. You look at the games prior, and we're really aggressive up there. The La Tech game, we kind of figured that they weren't going to just let you run back there, right? They were real quick throws and, doing certain things that you like, okay, they're not going to let you run back there and hit the quarterback. But this game, we had some chances too. We just didn't hold up, whether it was we had chances to hit them and the coverage broke down, or whether the coverage was great and we didn't get off a block. So that's just me and the play calling, being aggressive and letting the guys loose, and then the preparation during the week, making sure the guys know what to do, and again it comes back to making sure their mindset's correct, right? You got to play, right? You got to get on the grass and play ball, okay? And that's the most disappointing thing, when you're looking at it as a coach. Like, you go back and look at, like, what did I do wrong, so that way those guys can go, because they do everything that's asked, right? I mean, they came in on Sunday and went through, had a really good practice, and so they're gonna go and do it. So now, one, we gotta do our part, make sure they know what the hell to do, so they can go do it, and then demand that of them, make sure that they understand. Again, I said this before, and I know this is from coaches, like, there is a way you're going to play football in Nebraska, okay? And that was not good enough on Saturday, period.
So pretty adamant there. That's how the fans that went and left, or that went and stayed, felt. And, as we kind of put an end to the September Truths theme, here's what I believe. I believe Colorado is going to be right on the cusp of being a bowl team when they get back healthy-wise. What they showed me against USC in their comeback was impressive after getting dominated by Oregon. I think Minnesota is a team that may just get to 6. They're not very good. And that was a game that you had. And I think Michigan is what they are. I mean, they're really, really good, and their November is going to be telling as well. But I think they're at worst built to finish the year 3-1. They may not sweep Ohio State and Penn State, but they're good enough to split. And by doing that, they'll get a high consideration because of how they look. You can talk about who they've played with their strength of schedule, but you get one of those two wins, Penn State or Ohio State, and that's going to be one of the better wins in college football this year. So I think they're going to be a playoff. And if Ohio State stays unbeaten or Penn State stays unbeaten, they're in. But I think your Michigan's going to be a second Big Ten option, assuming you don't get multiple Pac-12 teams in. I think they start beating each other up. I don't think Louisiana Tech's worth a damn. I think their backup quarterback was okay, and they've got some better skill, talent than Nebraska does, at least more jitterbug guys, and that's so weird to say, at least that we've seen on the field right now. And Northern Illinois may be as bad a football team as there is when it comes to what they are offensively as a whole. So Nebraska right now is probably, you got 3 tiers of the Big Ten. You got your big dogs, you've got your everybody else, and then you've got your trying to get from the kids' table to the adult table, and Nebraska's at the kids' table right now. Mm-hmm. Just with what the rest of this league is. This is your relegation game. If you're Illinois, season flips on you and you're probably home. If you're Nebraska, you will be 0-3 in the league and a chance to get right. But what's your morale like with 2 weeks to think about it and get back out there? And then from a fan base standpoint, you're having a tough time with the rebuild anyway, because it's not been the easiest of things. It's a patience process.
And I'll keep my September truths pretty simple with this team. Simply put, this football team is not very good right now.
No.
Simply put, this football team is not very good.
It's not that they're not working, they're just what they are.
This team faces an uphill climb to reach a bowl game this year, but with that being said, everything that this team wants to accomplish is still ahead of them. You have done enough to give yourself a chance to make a bowl game through October and November. It's going to be an uphill battle, and I think a lot of it's going to fall on the coaching staff to get this team a hell of a lot better between now and the end of the month. I think if you want to make a bowl game, it happens in October. That's not a bold statement to make. I think in order to make a bowl game, the coaching staff is going to make a lot of hay, or is going to have to make a lot of hay. And I think it's going to take 3-1 through the month of October. This football team's not very good. I think they have the pieces in place to be better and to make a bowl game. And it's not just on the coaching staff, it's on the players as well. Both of those sides of the equation have to line up in order for this team to be able to make a bowl game. But everything this team wants to accomplish is still ahead of it, and it's still in the cards that it can make a bowl game. And I think making a bowl game is an absolute win for this coaching staff in year one. I think not only is it a positive boost to the fans and to the team, it gives you some positive momentum in recruiting that you can say, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Matt Rule. Nebraska hadn't made a bowl game in 7 years across multiple coaches, and I did it in my first year. What do you think we're going to do in year two? I think that's an absolute win.
Down.
It might not be overjoy from Husker fans to go play a bowl game in Detroit in January, but with that being said, it would still be an absolute win for this program, and I think it's still possible, but you're going to need to see that development in action from the Husker coaches and the Husker players.
Well, and our old friend Rock Westfall's been listening for years, says if you're asking Santa for anything, it's one, at a minimum, get a plane ticket to Detroit, and then also get that Kevlar if you are going to Detroit. He said that tongue-in-cheek with the bulletproof vest request if you are headed to Detroit in December. Funny, Rock, loved it. Email from Brett, Chris at HaleVarsity.com. Stop talking bad about my Huskers. Screw you guys. Going home.
Love you too.
And now, back to Hale Varsity Radio.
Open phones till 6. Hale Varsity continues. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, powered by Hurrdat Sports at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill Friday 4 to 6. Watch party follows, so come see us up there in La Vista. And Real Red Reaction follows. Brett's second email, West Champs guaranteed. God love your optimism, Brett. Emails Chris at HaleVarsity.com. Spark Adventures has tipped us. And it's $1.99, Elijah. We are singing for the supper tonight.
See, and
I'd give you more. I'd give you at least $8.99 for a plate of your pot roast tonight.
That's a great offer, actually.
I would totally do that.
That's a great offer. And I was thinking with our road show Friday at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, I think we set a tip amount. Not that we ask people to give us tips, but if you do, hey, you want to see us drink a beer on the air and see what happens after 6? It's $5 per beer. Tip us $5. One of us gets a beer. I think that's a great idea.
If you want your tab covered, just come out and say it instead of asking for the collection plate to be passed.
Well, I think that's how you get
the Church of Elijah.
It's how you get the listener in on our drinking, you know? Like, you want to see us start getting real uncensored?
Dude, they watch us on Saturdays. They watch us pregame. They watch us postgame. They watch the Friday shows, and they know we'll have a beer or a cup of coffee or something in between. Maybe it is water. Maybe it isn't. We'll get that figured out.
But I think if they want to see us drink a lot, I think we should leave that to the power
really
of fans.
Like just get sloppy and then go on and do a post game. That doesn't work too well.
I feel like we can if we get $50 in tips.
No, you think?
No.
We're gonna, instead of a 7-second delay, we're going to have a shock collar for each of us.
Yes. Hello, bosses. Monday meeting. I know that we were very sloppy in that post-game show.
Sorry about that.
But here's $50 that we got in tips. You're welcome.
Thank you. Give me half. Here's your box. Go pack. Who's on the line?
We have Jonathan on the line.
Jonathan, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. What's up?
Hey, so just kind of piggybacking real quick off the whole bowl game thing, even if it is, the Little Caesars Bowl, one kind of underrated aspect of making a bowl, even if it is a kind of lower tier bowl like that, is the extra practice. not just the extra game, but especially the extra practice, getting more time to look at footage. What say you, And that team hasn't had that for, 6 years? They haven't made a bowl game?
You think about it, the accumulation, too, Jonathan, of not just an extra 7 to 10 bowl practices, but do that over 3 years for those players that are trying to climb up the depth chart. That's 30 to 40 practices. That's a spring session, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I can't remember. Would you guys say it was 6 or 7 years I haven't made a bowl game? I can't remember.
You're going on year 7. It's been 6.
God.
So if you go,
let's start praying.
If you go without a bowl game this year, it'll be 7 years. That'll be almost 2 full recruiting class. I mean, two full recruiting sessions of freshman through senior year. Now, COVID's thrown a curveball.
And that's no help to those young men who want to get as much playing and practicing as possible. A bowl game is a bowl game. To me personally, there is positive aspects to it, no matter what bowl game it is. Like I said, extra practice, extra game, and if we can just even start small there and just kind of make it a snowball effect almost. Who knows what the future holds? I'm not going to say they're going to win the Big Ten West anytime soon because Washington and Oregon and USC are coming in, so that's going to be a total wild card for the West's future. But hoping they get something going, starting small, and just going from there.
Well, Jonathan, thanks for the call, and it starts Friday, dude. I mean, it's do or die. Get to 3-3, and then get to the bye week. You are going to be miserable at 2-4, and you're going to be miserable because you have 2 weeks to sit there and just beat up on one another until you get a chance to go out and take on Northwestern. The kids aren't going to, A, like the result. They don't like being 2 games under 500. But, B, it is just the fact that you're going to have to go through the gauntlet just internally again. Because Rule's calling them out in a good way, in a positive way, challenging them in a good way, in a positive way. And now it is all about response. They got to be put in position offensively with a game plan. Go execute it. Yes, you got to play like you've been playing defensively. And you got a team that's also limping in. And it's better than the alternative. It's better than getting somebody of Michigan's ilk getting destroyed by somebody that's way better than you at the current moment.
And while we're talking September truths and while we have the poor taste of Michigan sitting in our mouths, whenever you look back at what the month of September was, are we still prepared to call anything less than a bowl game a failure for this season? And that's a harsh terminology. I'm not sure we ever specifically laid it out, but whenever you look back at our shows from May through July, it was always the baseline standard for success this year is going to be a bowl game.
It's still a bowl game.
So still needs to be. So is it a failure if you're not reaching a bowl game in year one? Because I think unequivocally, absolutely, yes, it is a failure if you don't reach a bowl game in year one, because it's showing that you have not made any progress. Even if the record is better, if you fail to make that bowl game against what's been laid out today by our listeners and by ourselves as well to be an easier schedule than you're going to get in the future. I don't think if you're making a bowl game in year one as Matt Rule, I think there's a lot less you can sell, and I think it makes your rebuild as a whole a lot more difficult. And maybe it's just a ball bouncing your way in a couple of games this year that gets you to a bowl game and the talent isn't there, but you luck your way in. I think that's still a win because of what Jonathan laid out with the practices, what I laid out last segment with the recruiting momentum that you can then go sell and say, hey, I ended this streak of bowl games. What do you think year 2 and year 3 is going to look like for me? I think there's a lot you can sell off a bowl game, and I think that your rebuild becomes a lot more uphill, even more than it already is if you're not playing in a bowl game in year one.
You need to do it, and just the case of, listen, he didn't do it in his previous stops. That's fine, but he's already said, listen, I think I'm in more of a year 2 situation where I'm on that bowl fringe at Nebraska. That's what his assessment was at the time, and it's okay to be positive, but Rule doesn't strike me as a guy that's just throwing out sound bites to be eye candy and garner favor. I think he's an honest assessor, and based on what he saw, the talent he saw, and what he thought spring was, he's been through these before. He's been through the 1-11s at Temple and in Baylor.
And Nebraska is not Temple or Baylor any year. I don't care what part of the rebuild you're in. Any year that's not a bowl game is a failure,
you're walking in theoretically to more in the cupboard. You can challenge some of that on offense with where you're at quarterback, where you're at on the offensive line performance-wise. What are you with your skill guys? The offense is a mess, okay? And they're working to get better, but they're limited. Can they play better? Can they look better at what they want to do? And the topic of offensive identities come up a lot. They have an identity. They want to be physical and they want to be able to run the football. It's nice to want to do that. Can you do that? And Rule said it on Monday. Don't confuse what we are versus what we're good at and want to do. And they're not good at being able to line up and run it and get 3 or 4 yards on first down against a team like Michigan. They're going to need to be able to figure that out and grind it out so they can get that 6 yards per carry fourth quarter average and take it down 2 yards. Give me 4 yards in the fourth quarter if I'm a Nebraska fan and hold on to the football. They got annihilated with time of possession as well. I mean, they were minus 17 against Michigan. They only had 40-some plays. And a handful of that was 2-minute drill and a half. We'll wind down to Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, big thanks to Jeremiah Sirles. Big thanks to Mitch Sherman. Find their segments or whatever segments you want to hear the entire show, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio. You can rewatch the episode a couple different ways on video. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio or the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver has one job. That's to drive a message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. We are trying to get better at getting through all of your comments in the StreamYard. If we didn't read yours or get to you, we apologize. We'll be better tomorrow. We're trying to get better every day as well. I do have this to add. Kirk has chimed in, so he is proposing $10. Can we race?
Yes.
Can we race a beer?
I think we should just race 40-yard dash.
Dude.
What else could he be referring to?
No, who can slam the beer quickest, like you see at the NBA games? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking they line us up outside the Hail Varsity Club and we go head-to-head in a 40-yard dash.
I think you're extremely high.
20-yard dash?
No, I'm going to maim you with my vehicle so I can win. It's the only way I'm going to win.
That'll be $15 in the tip. You want to see that?
Elijah. What's wrong with Elijah? He's got a bone sticking out.
Yeah, $25 will box. $50. We got to have like a whole tip sheet here for post-game shows for what people want to see. You know,
Bert chimes in and says $1 million on you in any race against me.
I don't know about that.
You have old lineman.
Yeah, I got tight
foot
hips,
issues.
Tight hips. My knees will get sore.
I've never been fast ever.
I'm a clunky runner. You know.
You play.
I got long strides, but it's not fast.
No, you're a lineman. It's all right.
It's just I've seen my running technique before.
Short area burst.
I got good lateral quickness. Lateral quickness, like, don't test me.
Mm-hmm.
In a straight line running. Oh, it's going to be the clunkiest, most awkward-looking running
no one
technique
wants
you've
to.
ever seen.
No one wants to see that. I mean, unless you want to feel better about yourself. Elijah will win by, probably 13 yards.
In 40?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Again, unless there's the reenactment of Happy Gilmore, where some guy in a fisherman's hat comes out of nowhere with a Volkswagen.
Okay, if this helps you, I did race our good friend Will Wilson, who you see on the Real Red Reaction show, as well as on the morning show here locally for our Lincoln listeners on KFOR on the morning hookup. I raced him across a basketball court one time.
Why?
To see who would win, obviously.
But I mean,
it was dead even. It was I won one, he won the other, and I won the best of three, and they were all very, very close. He had the start on me. I think I had once I got up to speed, I was faster than him, but just barely. It was close all three times. If that gives you a good gauge of how fast I am.
The Alpha Olympics. where nobody wins when it comes to actual 40 times and feats of strength and
no, that'd be really
pure
fun,
athleticism.
Like, hey, all the people who talk about sports all day, you want to see how bad they actually are?
You want to know why we're talking versus playing? Real simple, real easy.
Well, we make it the beer Olympics, and you have to drink a beer in between every single event.
That's fine.
You see how it gets by the end.
We can study film that way. I think I'd handle the beer Olympics all right, and do wonderful.
This would be a good off-season activity for us.
We'll get it figured out. The Beer Olympics will huddle up and be back tomorrow. Evan Bland going to be with us. A Jock Doc tomorrow. Mike Babcock will join us from Hail Varsity. Thanks a ton for tuning in, and we'll check in with you tomorrow. Again, check out the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or the Hail Varsity YouTube channel.